So good morning, everyone. we have to start on time for people attending online, and it's time. So good morning again. I hope you enjoyed yesterday evening, and that you're still fresh for this morning presentations. It will start with Pascal Baylocq, Geostock CEO, introduction to underground hydrogen storage, and then during all the morning, we'll go through Hystories techno-economic results, the right part of the project as I presented it in general yesterday. Pascal, the floor is yours.
So good morning to all of you, and welcome to this second day of the conference. I would like first to thank École des Mines for having us during these 2 days, and thank you to give me the opportunity to talk on behalf of Geostock. Just a few words on Hystories. I think I said it to some of you yesterday, but I just wanted to say that Hystory for me is a great success. And that's a very good example of what is a successful and ambitious collaborative European project to promote decarbonize in energy. And what I saw yesterday in terms of the quality of the result that I saw yesterday was very, very good, and I was really impressed by what was presented. So thank you to everybody. And I would like to congratulate all of you for the good result that you have shown yesterday. And a special thanks to Arnaud, who led that project in the last 2 years very successfully. So thanks again. So my presentation will come back on very general information and data regarding underground storage. I've been asked to make a simple presentation and give some order of magnitude. So sorry for the people who knows that quite well, but I'm sure that among the expert and very good scientists that we have here, I hope that some of them will be interested by these very general information regarding underground storage. Before that, I would like to take a look on the world energy situation, and just to make a little bit of history. 50 years ago, Geostock was created to develop some massive and strategic underground storage of hydrocarbons. Why? Because the cost of energy was very high, and the energy was scarce. It was following the Suez Canal crisis, okay? And we were called by the government. The government asked the French oil and gas companies to develop some strategic underground storage, okay? And we developed these strategic underground storage because the energy was expensive and scarce. And after a few decades, the energy became available and free, or nearly free. And recently, the story begins again. I mean, with the energy transition, with the COVID, with the war in Ukraine, energy is again scarce and very expensive. And so we will need in the coming years, and it's going to last probably a few years or a few decades. And so we will need in the coming years to develop some massive storage capacity for energy, okay, and massive storage capacity for hydrogen. So the story begins again, okay? The cost of the energy is very expensive and the energy is scarce. And we have to be careful because in the last years, Europe has promoted and supported green hydrogen production project, green hydrogen usage project, okay, has started to support and promote transport infrastructure with the backbone project, okay, but we are just starting to speak about a storage project, okay, but storage projects are going to be very important and critical in the future, okay, and with the development of renewable energy that are intermittent, we need additional storage capacity in order to face the intermittency of these renewable energy. Okay, so this is becoming crucial. So we need massive storage capacity, and if we need massive storage capacity, we need to go underground. Okay? So what are the different techniques? It was shown yesterday very quickly, but I will come back on that. What are the different techniques to store massive quantities of hydrogen? We have the salt caverns, okay? You have a salt layer. We are usually at around 1,000 meters, okay? You drill a well, you circulate fresh water, and you are going to create a cavity after 2 years, roughly. That is the size of the Eiffel Tower. How many cavity you have in the world? You have 1,900 salt caverns worldwide, okay? They are quite suitable. There is no showstopper for hydrogen. There are 6 existing salt caverns for hydrogen worldwide, in US and in UK, so there is no showstopper. Very easy, and it has been developed since more than 60 years. Next one, and that's the subject of this conference, we have the aquifer and depleted field. How many do we have? 650 existing aquifers and depleted field to store mainly natural gas, okay? There is no, and that's the conclusion of these 2 days, obvious showstopper. There are some challenges, okay, but there is no obvious showstopper to store hydrogen. And then you have the mine cavern. Mine cavern, you are using mining techniques, okay, you are at 100-meter depth, and you are using explosives to create some big cavities. You have 450 existing sites worldwide. We are storing crude oil, refined product, LPG, okay? But if you want to store hydrogen at 200 bars, you need to put a liner inside, okay? So this technology is not as mature as the 2 other. We need some pilots. There are some existing pilots that are under operation, that are commissioned. But it's going to take a little bit more time before that technology become really mature. But it's going to come in the following years. So these are the 3 main techniques to store massive quantities of hydrogen underground. So just a few examples. On the left side, you have that we are in Marseille, in the south part of France. That's a mine cavern. So you see the size. That's a big mine cavern, 20-meter high, 20-meter width. It can be a few kilometers long. Okay. Then you have, and some people from Fluxys are here. You have an aquifer, natural gas storage. It's in Belgium. Then we are in Singapore, in the harbor of Singapore, below the sea. You have some big mine caverns, and you can see just below the access shaft. That's a 22-meter access shaft. You go down to 130 meters in the mine cavern, and we are storing crude oil and refined product. And then you are in the south part of France, close to Manosque, and you have 40 salt caverns. That's the beginning of the history of Geostock. The customer, it's Geocell, and Karim is here. And that's an underground storage for natural gas and for crude oil and refined product. And you can see the size of one cavern that is approximately the size of the Eiffel Tower. So these are the main techniques to store massive quantities of hydrogen underground. What are the advantages of underground storage? Safety, okay? You are at 1,000 meters, there is no oxygen. Inside the well, you have many different safety valves, okay? So the risk of explosion is reduced. Environment, if you choose the good geology, and that's really important, I mean, the risk of leaks is reduced, okay? So in terms of environment, the risks are reduced as compared to an above ground storage. The footprint is limited, okay? If you take a big cavern like the one you see here, that is the size of the Eiffel Tower, I mean, the footprint at surface probably, well, it's contained within the floor, so it's reduced. So the impact on the biodiversity is reduced, okay, and the social acceptance is much better. And in terms of security, due to the fact that effectively the footprint is reduced, well, any terrorist act or the risk of terrorist act is much reduced. Okay, so these are the main advantages of the underground storage. We said that you can store massive quantities of hydrogen. Just to give some order of magnitudes, how much you can store in a truck? Probably 1 ton, up to 4 tons if it's liquid hydrogen. but the cost per cubic meter is going to be very high. Okay, you can store bigger quantity if you go into a sphere. Okay, cryogenic sphere, liquid hydrogen. You'll be able to store 100 or a few hundred tons of hydrogen. But if you go underground in a salt cavern, okay, with a cavern that is the size of the Eiffel Tower, 300,000 cubic meter, you'll be able to store 4,000 tons of hydrogen. So 1,000 times what you can store in a truck. Okay, and you have some existing caverns in the US that are 3 times the size of the Eiffel Tower. Okay, so massive quantity. You go underground and you reduce really the cost per cubic meter. And in terms of cost, okay, if you go underground, I mean, the cost is going to be reduced as compared to above ground. And just to give some order of magnitude, so don't take these figures as granted. I mean, really, it depends on the geology that you will have, the surface facilities, the compression, etc. But what I want to say here is that even if you double the cost of the underground, I mean, the ratio or the difference between the cost of underground and above ground it's much cheaper if you go underground. So let's say that you invest a capex of 500 million. Okay, how much hydrogen I can store for 500 million? If you go above ground, you're going to be able to store between 250 and 500 tons of hydrogen. If you go into a line rock cavern, okay, you'll be able to store between 600 and 1,200 tons. Okay. But if you go into a salt cavern and into an aquifer or depleted field, you'll be able to store between 15,000 and up to 30,000 tons of hydrogen. Again, I mean, these are order of magnitude, so be careful with this figure, but the difference between above ground and underground is huge, okay? And last point, how much storage capacity we'll need in the future? And for that, rough calculation again, but just to give some order of magnitude. We said, okay, oil products today, we are storing 25% of the oil and gas consumption of our oil consumption, 25%. That's the 90 days that are recommended by the International Energy Agency, okay? If you look at the natural gas, we are storing about 11% of the world consumption worldwide. It's a little bit higher in Europe, probably close to 20%. So we said, okay, let's assume that we're going to store 5% of the hydrogen consumption. Then you take the production capacity in France, Europe, and worldwide. 6 gigawatt in France, 40 gigawatt in Europe, 90 gigawatt in the world. It's probably underestimated by 2030. And you say, I'm going to store 5% of this production. So you will need in France the equivalent of 20 to 40 caverns, salt caverns. Okay. In Europe, you will need between 120 and 250 caverns. And worldwide, you will be between 200 and 400 salt caverns, the equivalent of salt cavern, okay, as compared to the 1,900 existing salt caverns worldwide. Okay. So that's just to give an order of magnitude, but that's massive, again, quantities of equivalent salt cavern that will be needed in the future. Okay, so my conclusion is that, again, we need to develop some massive storage capacity worldwide. Salt caverns are probably the most suitable and easy today. Lined mine caverns are going to come in the future. Okay, if you have no salt, this is another alternative. But there is also a very promising future for storing hydrogen in aquifers and depleted field. We saw it during these 2 days. Again, there is no obvious showstopper. We have a lot of location in Europe to store this hydrogen, and there is a promising future for storing hydrogen in aquifers and depleted field. That's my conclusion. Thanks a lot.